Here's what happened, guys. Yesterday had something that came up, so unfortunately I wasn't able to join you guys yesterday, but excited today to talk to you about this important topic of how does the world really work and really work. And what I'm excited about to talk about is that having a foundation of truth that we can move forward into our future and make sure that this foundation of truth is something that we're continuing to be reminded of, because there is a lot of evilness that is out there and a lot of distraction, a lot of chaos that we can experience as Americans, and then with the many conversations I've had with small business owners, that small business owners can experience. And what I'm excited about is a future where we can have this foundation of truth, and then where we can be aware of what is going on around us, psychological operations to ways that we are being divided as the American people. And when we are aware of it, then we can focus on making massive change and move forward to make America's future a small business renaissance. But we have to become awake. And I talked about that last time, the Plato's allegory of the cave, where when we leave the cave and we realize we see the world for how it really is, there's an obligation there to be the messenger for others and to go back into the cave. And we can come across a lot of opposition with sharing the truth. And it can be difficult at times to have to continue to move forward, but we must continue to move forward, continue to unite, and make sure that we're making America's future a small business renaissance. Because I love this country, and I do hope you love this country too. It does not mean this country is perfect, but we have so many individual rights here that we have to protect, like our freedom of speech and the ability to own our small business. And we can take these rights for granted, and we have to have the awareness to be reminded of how precious these are and how amazing this gift is of the country that we're living in today, and continue to steward this country moving forward for not only our kids but our future generations into the next 100 years. So welcome back to the show. Let's get into it on this Monday. Happy Monday. I have no beef with Santa Claus, but we got to bring Santa Claus into this, because where things don't make sense, get curious, or be curious and ask questions. And when it comes to Santa Claus, I fought so hard with my family to say that Santa Claus was real. I would get into massive arguments as a kid, and then to find out that Santa Claus is not real at that time, it was devastating for me as a kid. But it got me thinking even bigger of where things don't make sense. Be curious and ask questions. Why do we as a society get on board with this big lie? And it is a big lie. There's a school where you can go to become Santa Claus. You see Santa Claus at so many different malls growing up when I was a kid. And you look around and you're like, wow, there are a lot of people that are participating in this lie. And they may not have been the ones that originated that lie, but they're participating in it. And that gets me to think back to what are other big lies that we as Americans may not be aware of that we're participating in, and we're continuing to push out into the public, into our society, and sharing that with our kids, because that can help us to change this worldview that we have, and realize that actually there may be a worldview, and I believe in this, the worldview of the powerful versus the rest of us. And there have been so many contradictions out there in our society of ways of things that have caused us to become divided as American people. And when a house is divided, it cannot stand. And by being aware of these distractions and these divisions and ways to create chaos, we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Why is that happening? And it goes back to then the powerful, those that we may not even know the names of, but some have called, going back to the emails that have just been released, or that have been released in the past, the Epstein class, globalists, the elites is another term, deep state. So you have all these different power dynamics, but what it comes back to that I've learned is that we're in a spiritual war. And there's demonic forces that are out there. It is being continuously talked about in the mainstream, and it's getting louder and louder across our country, and we're becoming aware of that. And I've come back to my faith in Christianity, and within that Catholicism. I was baptized Catholic, and then I was Taurus for most of my life, and until recently coming back into my faith. And I can see it much clearer now for this spiritual war. But things don't make sense out there. And I want to get into that a little bit more of these different contradictions that we've experienced. One of which is the contradiction that we're getting when it comes to our environment and climate change. And so I grew up thinking that climate change, it was it's such an important topic. I wanted to be a steward of the environment, and I felt like we had to make massive change here and take care of our environment. And I got that messaging growing up as a kid. But then now with the developments of AI and how it has become mainstream of AI's of promoting AI across our 1,000 industries here in the U.S. And trying to get us as small business owners to implement AI in some way, shape, or form within the business, it gets me to be curious and be like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we focusing on building these data centers, more and more of these data centers, and roughly 25% of all data centers are focused on AI here in the US, and there's less than 6,000 of these data centers. But then when I look at electricity usage, water usage, it doesn't add up, and it's then draining our natural resources. And when it comes to the desire to want to have clean air, clean water, and then clean food, this doesn't make sense to me. And I want to share with you here I'm going to share with you on my screen a messaging from the World Economic Forum. So you have organizations, international organizations like the World Economic Forum that had this posted in a video, and it was the predictions for 2023, where it said, you'll own nothing and be happy. So you have that messaging that's coming towards us as Americans. And then when the other one that was in that prediction list was that you'll eat less meat because we need to take care of our environment, and meat, agriculture is a big cause of damaging our environment. And it got me thinking more and more. I'm like, this feels like it's a way to control us. Like, that was coming up, and it was hard at first to really grasp that. But when I had to get into this worldview, the powerful and the rest of us, well, it makes sense to want to distract or get us, the rest of us, focused on different topics, and it gets confusing, because when I hear that messaging and then I look at the data, where back in 2024, with less than 6,000, there's less than 6,000 U.S. data centers, but the estimates were the electricity usage was for the year was 183 terawatt hours. And to give you an idea of a comparison, to run all the electricity for all the homes in Nashville, it is less than 10,000 terawatt hours. And so the amount of electricity that's being used for these data centers is overwhelming. And then what can that do for increases in prices for electricities for your home? Then it gets us to go back to this important point, which is that one way you have less poor people is you make energy cheaper. And then, so we have that as one with electricity, but then water usage is another one. And I found out that a large data center, think of like a hyperscale data center, can consume up to 5 million gallons of water a day. So to give you an idea, so that's one day for the data center. And then for a town that's populated, by 10,000 to 50,000 people, it's the same equivalent to up to the 5 million gallons of water. So then, if we're putting so much water and electricity into these data centers, what does that then do for our overall quality of life as Americans and within our rural towns? And then we are not even getting into sound quality, the noise. The noise of these data centers as well. And then we got to keep asking ourselves, well, why are we getting this messaging that AI is the future? And can there be alternatives? And I do believe that there can be alternatives. So I want to share again my screen here with you guys for this other messaging. So remember, we had the World Economic Forum saying you'll own nothing, you'll be happy. And then to eat less meat was another one that was in those predictions because of climate, because of concerns of our climate. But then when I see this is another on the World Economic Forum. There's another part here that I want to read, which states, "We are entering one of the largest change management exercises in history, and every business leader and professional will need to embrace it in order to unlock the value of AI. This will usher in a level of transformation that organizations and employees have never witnessed before." So then when you're getting that of this embracing of AI, from the same organization that was saying, hey, we got to eat less meat because of concerns to our climate, it does not add up. It does not make sense. It feels like we're getting pushed into these narratives and trying to distract us from being able to step back and really understand, does this make sense for us to continue down this path? Is there any contradictions that we're noticing? Because when it comes to the attention span of average American, with going back with social media to being able to go and watch tons of shows and easy access to different programming that's out there, we can get distracted very easily and we can have a short attention span. So when we're not able to take a step back and notice the patterns here of where things don't make sense, it can be easy to let things just pass by without recognizing the pattern there. And this is one where it did not make sense, and it feels like we're getting put into this narrative of we just got to follow along the powerful. And we don't have to do that. We can actually not just adapt to the future as small business owners, as Americans, but we can shape the future. It's important to remember there are 36 million small businesses here in the U.S. All businesses, 99% of all businesses are small businesses in the U.S. And we have a ability to shape the future. And there's massive change that we're experiencing currently right now. But another contradiction, but more so helping you to shatter some narratives that you may have experienced growing up, as I did, and also to be aware of hidden information that I didn't learn in school. One of which, and I come back to, well, why was this? Well, could this have been to divide and distract us, to create chaos in our society so that we can't really focus on what is going on here, what groups are taking advantage of us, the American people, like situations that we're seeing in Minnesota with the fraud that's coming out of Minnesota. But we can get distracted easily and understand the power dynamics at play and how the world really works. So one of which was the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, and I wasn't aware of this revolution, and I didn't realize the millions of Christians that were killed in this revolution. The other one that was brought to my attention from an American economist, Thomas Sowell, highly recommend you check out his work, was that when it came to so in Europe, there were white Europeans enslaved by North African Barbary pirates, and the number of white Europeans that were enslaved was greater than the amount of Africans that were brought over to the 13 colonies in the United States. And I did not even know about this, of what was happening in North Africa. And then today, if you look to today, there are more slaves today than at any other point in history. And then we got to continue to ask ourselves then, well, why is that when it comes to human trafficking, to forced labor, to then debt? Debt is a form of slavery, going back to the Bible of the borrower's slave to the lender. And one point that I want to make for how we can move forward and make America's future a small business renaissance is to have no debt and to focus on that. There are roughly over $18 trillion of household debt in this country. And we need to, moving forward, make sure we are focused on figuring out ways to continue to reduce the debt that we have in our household and then completely eliminate it moving forward in the business. Because then you're a slave to the lender. And when it comes to that debt increasing, then the amount of stress you can feel, and I know this personally from both personal debt to business debt, it is overwhelming in your day-to-day life. But I go back to then the narratives that we've experienced in our society, and how this can be ways to divide us, and create more chaos. And so ways that could divide us is it can divide us into these narratives of right versus left on politics. It can divide us based off of race. It can divide us based off of sex. It can divide us based off of how much money we have in the bank account, or pronouns. And with all these different ways of dividing us, the question to keep asking ourselves is why? Why are these out there to divide us? Why are these psychological operations that are out there that can relate to some of these narratives? Why are they out there? And what's important to remember is that when it comes to theology, when it comes to culture, it comes to the economy, and then when it comes to politics, they're all interconnected in shaping the future. And we cannot forget about that. And so when you're focusing on your small business and continuing to try to make sure that you're improving your quality of life of yourself, your family, and your community, we can't ignore also what is going on around us in the bigger picture too, because that affects us in our day-to-day life, even if we may not care about it or may not even realize it. And the other thing I want to focus on too is that what did I not learn in school? And what you may have not learned in school. Well, one, I didn't learn how to do my taxes in school. Didn't learn about inflation. Didn't learn how to buy a home. And why is that? Why wasn't I able to understand these pretty important skills to understand, and pretty important information to understand moving forward into my adult life? Why is that? And did that really set me up for to be more successful in my adult life? And it goes back to, again, why, and we've got to be curious. We've got to be curious and ask questions when things don't make any sense. Then what I want to talk about is that convenience and freedom, they're incompatible, and technology has reached a plateau. A new future is coming, and I want to take more time to get into this later in this week, going into even next few weeks. But what freedom are we giving up for convenience? That goes back to, I've talked about it here before in the show, of cameras being everywhere, this feeling, the surveillance that we can experience as we're going out in public. And then when it comes to using technology, like you going on our computer, going on our phone, what are we accepting for the terms and services? Are we actually reading through those documents? Are we reading through the privacy policies? Are we taking time to really understand how a business is, how our information is being taken care of? And as small business owners, we can lead by example here of really genuinely caring about the people we're serving and being transparent, being clear in clear expectations for the people that we are serving. But we got to first understand the bigger picture of what are we losing because of convenience. And then for overall results, do we feel like, the results right now, as we look around, do we like the results that we're seeing? I go back to these big messes that we have to clean up. And the answer for me is no, I don't like the results we're seeing, where we're seeing more chaos and more confusion. We're seeing more depression, more obesity, more when it comes to drug use, more of this division that we can't disagree and be able to live in the same society. And whenever I say something you disagree with me, this putting labels on people without without being willing to be curious and ask questions as to why they think the way they think. Another one is the national debt being over $39 trillion. How Gen Z is the most in-debt generation for their age group in the history of the U.S. How the average home price back in the early 1980s was 3 times the median income. Now it's roughly 7 times the median income. Things don't make sense. And this idea of progress, are we actually making progress? Are we critically thinking more? Are we smarter than we were decades ago? Are we able to understand complex topics and be able to distill that out and clearly communicate that to others? These are really important questions to ask ourselves, because when we are experiencing chaos in our society, it's really hard to then run your business, and it's really hard to continue to show up every day and get your day-to-day operations completed within your business. And so we also have to ask that question more and more. Do we like the results that we're seeing right now? And my answer to that is no. And we've got to make a change here. And that's where future can look differently when it comes to instead of chaos, the future can be stability. And the future can be a foundation of truth. The future can be focusing on practical wisdom as one of the cardinal virtues, practical wisdom. Another one is fairness, focusing on fairness, courage, self-control, bringing those back moving forward when it comes to our virtues. Our moral virtues, celebrating that as progress moving forward into the future. And so with no debt, we also have to think about success instead of just chasing the money, because the love of money is the root of all evil. Money's important for day-to-day life, but where we can celebrate success is in creating family businesses we could pass on to our children, our grandchildren, businesses that last, that are just not for the short term, but are for decades into the future. And to think that we need to implement all different forms of technology is just not true. I go to the example of the Amish community as an example where you can use less technology and then still continue to have a business that is able to continue to operate years into the future. So I push back against that narrative, and it's important for us to be able to wake up to that too as well. But thinking back to the past too, we used to be able to have a household, to have a stable household with one income. And then now it's so hard to be able to just figure out how to get money to pay rent or pay for groceries. We're having to use credit in order to pay for our groceries. Noticing that with Gen Z for the buy now, pay later model. So we've got to make some really important changes moving forward. But where things don't make sense, be curious and ask questions. And then I want to also make sure moving forward that we're aware of the spiritual battle too that's happening here. And we got to fight for what is beautiful, good, and true in our country. And as small business owners, we got to unite to move forward. And as Americans, we got to come together and unite to move forward and realize that there is this world, this power dynamic that's happening of the powerful and the rest of us, and that we can figure out ways to improve the overall quality of life of all of Americans here. And we don't have to just settle for the results that we've gotten and just give up and say that's it and not put in the work to make change. We can make change here, and we can adapt. We don't just have to adapt to the future, but we can shape the future through our will. And then the other one is quality that I want to get to for a question is, why has the quality gone down? We can think about that across our society, to architecture, to then food quality, to just customer experience quality. When it comes to companies as they grow, the quality can go down. Quality of service can go down. And that's where small business owners can lead by example of the importance of genuinely caring about the people you're serving and creating an incredible experience, a high quality experience. And that's something we got to continue to celebrate and elevate in our society moving forward into the future. And it's important, going back to stability, make sure we have stability rather than chaos. So if you're a small business owner who wants to connect with other small business owners that care about the future of this country, they can join us in person in Charleston, South Carolina, January 14th and 15th, 2027 for A Future Fest. This is where you can register here, is at afuturefest.com. And excited for being able to have small business owners across industries to come together, because when you are able to connect and learn from other small business owners in different industries, you can take those certain ideas that you may not have experienced in your industry and then bring them in and become an innovator, a leader within your industry, and then continue to focus on on taking care of our future. Because I do believe America's future is a small business renaissance. I do believe that America's future leaders are small business owners. And so we got to continue to unite, and excited for this event. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow.